Hi everyone, I've been meaning to make this video for a while. It's something that's kind of plagued my brain for, I don't know, months I guess. And I've not made it yet because, well, I hadn't made it up to this point because I just couldn't think of a good way to frame it. I'm also incredibly aware that sometimes if people make videos where they're looking outside of their own experiences and talking about the world at large, they can sound a little bit arrogant, like they have all of the answers. And I can't stress enough, it couldn't be further from the truth. This is very much my own kind of view, but I do think that other people probably share it as well. Now, what's caused me to think that I have some enough evidence or enough content to drive my point home? Well, there have been quite a few little pockets of examples that I'm going to use today to sort of make my point. And these pockets are coming from three distinct spaces: from trans people or people on the left, from TERFs, and from people on the right. And in my view, the kind of underlying rationales for their actions all come from pretty much the same place. In other words, even though it might feel like we are in direct opposition with each other, we should be much more closely allied than we are. We certainly should not be at each other's throats as much as it feels like we are. So what are those three incidents or things, I guess, that I want to use as my kind of framing device here? Well, I'm going to go into them in not much detail. So I'm not going to do the nuances or the details justice. So apologies in advance for not quite getting everything in there, but I want this to be a relatively short video, so I can't dig into it too much. And these aren't going in time sequence order or anything like that. This is just a kind of a mind dump of events. First of all, I noticed on Reddit, but I suspect it's probably spread to other online spaces as well, there's been quite a lot of naming and shaming of left or left-leaning people, artists, not overtly criticizing Israel or talking about the ongoing genocide in Palestine. And specifically, because these are the spaces that I inhabit, it's targeted ContraPoints, Philosophy Tube and Radiohead. I think that says a little bit about my tastes in YouTube and music. And the overarching kind of narrative within each of these spaces is that these artists should say something. They should make a comment, a statement, something overt, talking about how they feel about this ongoing conflict, this genocide, and that they haven't makes them somewhat complicit, and they should be, I don't know, cancelled or whatever. They should be decried, they should be criticised for their apparent silence. And then when a response or a comment was made, it was deemed not to be good enough, and so it was lose-lose either way, as far as it seemed with these artists. I'm not going to get into that too much because, as I say, there's a lot more nuance there, but that's the general overarching argument from certain people within those groups. And by no means, by the way, is this a uniform view. You do see arguments on both sides of this debate, but there is an argument nonetheless that these people shouldn't be considered left, or they shouldn't be considered allies or whatever. So that's the first one. The second one is the ongoing kind of, when there was the race riots in the UK last year, and then there's been this constant sort of undercurrent, this underbubble of hostility towards immigrants. And here we're seeing targeting of individual immigrants, specifically those who are living in hotels. It's always 4-star hotels. I'm sure some of them are staying in slightly less swanky hotels. But that's what they're up to, these far-right people. I mean, amongst other things, I'm sure they're targeting trans people as well, but one of the things they're doing is going for immigrants, like the immigrants in the country. And, I mean, TERFs, do I need to outline all of the things that they get up to? I mean, TERFs as a genre should be enough, but I wanted to talk about this because another goddamn thing happened yesterday or the day before. It's kind of like current news, and it's, I think, very, very good indicator of what TERFism is all about. So in this story, we see a person, a retail worker in Marks and Spencer's, who apparently had the audacity to be working there and to ask somebody if they needed any help in the vicinity of the underwear section, women's underwear section. And this was taken as an assault, essentially. And obviously this is a gender neutral space. It's not a gendered space. It's not a space that's specifically only for women. And so there's a clear sense that they are trying to push trans people at large further and further out of view. And of course, trans people aren't immune to this either. There's recently been a kind of a big, I don't know what to call it, kerfuffle that centered on the R-trans subreddit and kind of spiraled out from beyond there, where a moderator in that subreddit flagged a post that somebody made where they were highlighting issues that trans men face. They called it divisive, and then they deleted it, and it was all really bad, and it descended into this kind of, I'd say it was a sort of a self-imposed introspective period where people were wondering whether or not trans men were as welcome in certain trans spaces as others, which is, you know, is a reasonable debate, but it often got quite heated. Obviously, it would do. Anyway, so those are the 3 or 4, I think I promised 3, and I've given 4 examples. I can't debate the basic maths today. And I promised that I would connect them somehow. And so to do that, first of all, I just want to acknowledge that life these days is pretty bleak. It's pretty bad. Everyone's struggling. Cost of living is higher. We see climate change and the environment kind of collapsing around us. We see a huge disparity between the richest and the rest of us, and it really hurts. And feeling angry and bitter about this, I think, is a perfectly reasonable and acceptable response to the way the world is these days. It's horrible, it's awful, it's almost like completely at odds with humanity at large. People have less security at work, they have less bang for their buck, they don't feel that their paycheck is going as far as it used to, their rent's increasing, food costs are increasing. We have a much lower quality of life than our parents' and grandparents' generations did, and it really hurts. And increasingly, I think it feels like there's a lot of change going on as well. There's the constant influx of new technologies, AI looming on the horizon, posing another existential threat to our jobs and our incomes and livelihoods. And it's terrifying. And so any examples of where we see change, it just feels like another thing that's being imposed on us. Change is scary, and it's very frustrating when you feel that you're not involved within that change conversation. I'm sure that some of the more, I don't know, intelligent people in this audience can probably see where this is going, but that sense of a complete lack of power and agency when it comes to their people's lives these days, and in terms of change and everything like that, people are looking for ways to have something that they can have an impact on, a way that they can try to feel safer, or that they're working towards a better future, or that they've done something to move their own personal rights or interests forwards. And so that brings me to all of these activities and actions that I just discussed. Because objectively, none of those things are going to bring about the kind of fundamental changes that are going to make a significant difference or impact to the lives of the people in question. Targeting immigrants, and I guess the intention is to get rid of all of the immigrants in the UK so that there's not a single one in the entire country. Is that going to improve the equality? No. Is it going to reduce the disparity of wealth? No. Is it going to make any actual impact on the quality of your life? I mean, it will probably have a detrimental impact on your lives. I mean, so much of the economy requires for there to be some kind of underclass, people who are doing the cheap shit work for cheap shit wages. And if not them, then who? And TERFs, if they get what it seems their intention is, the complete elimination of trans people, at least in the public face of things, will that make them objectively more safe? No, because there's still going to be patriarchy, there's still going to be men running around doing their thing. Getting rid of trans people isn't going to make a single bit of difference to their lives, and yet still they attack us. What about leftists? If ContraPoints or Philosophy Tube or Radiohead put out a message decrying the genocide in Palestine, is that going to make even one iota bit of difference to the conflict there? No. The Israeli army and government don't care about what a couple of trans YouTubers, well, one's coming on to being a movie star now, and one of the most popular acts from the last 20 years have to say about things. If they really cared about such things, then we wouldn't be in this place in the first instance. It's not going to make any difference whatsoever. Are trans people's lives going to be made any better if we are internally auditing the things that we say, and if we say certain things loud enough or consistently enough? Well, no. That internal struggle isn't going to help how we move in public spaces, how we interact with cis people. Okay, I can imagine that it might make some people feel a little bit more comfortable in certain online spaces, but it's not going to help in the real world when you're working in a store and you're faced with a transphobe. So what's going on here? So I mean, I think it's quite clear that a lot of people are finding wherever it is they have that modicum of power and using that leverage, and always, or more often than not, it's about punching down to people with less power than you. It's trans people, it's immigrants, it's the disenfranchised and underemployed, the people who don't have a representation or a voice in the corridors of power. These are the people that are implemented in the degradation of civilization, and yet we're the people that have the least amount of agency and action to make things happen. It's wild, yet still there's this hyper focus on these groups. And as I said, there's so many overlapping and common interests here that in reality you think we should be allied with each other. Trans people need good economy in order to access their healthcare. Women and trans people and men need good security measures for women at large. It's really quite sad that we are at each other's throats, but I think many of us can see how and why we ended up here, because this is the result of decades and decades and decades of witch hunts and finger pointing in the wrong direction by certain powerful people. Now, as somebody who's read a lot of history, learnt a lot of history, I'm confident that trans people, for example, will get through this, will come out the other side, hopefully in a better place, and hopefully most of us, the vast majority of us, who've gone into this will come out of it. But I don't think everyone will. People are going to be hurt or worse along the way, and that's the only, wow, there's a giant hornet. Probably best not to get too close to him. There will be another boogie person somewhere along the way that we are going to be told is the enemy, and this time they've got it right, because this time this is the big bad. This is the thing, the entity, the group that is the sole cause of all of your displeasure. And when that happens, I hope that I can see past the narrative in the media, whoever it is, despite my misgivings about this group. I can try to remind myself that within any large group of people, within any population, you're going to find good actors, you're going to find bad actors. And a lot of the time, that kind of big, faceless, evil collective is rarely true. Because within a given population, I like to think humanity at large is reasonably benign to other humans. Wait, I think there's one group that I make an exception for here, and that's billionaires. Screw them. They are the scourge of the planet. They are the cause of all of our problems and misfortunes. If we were to eliminate billionaires, the world would be a much better place. I mean, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much. Have yourselves a wonderful day and a wonderful week, and I'll see you all very soon. All the best. Goodbye.